What's up guys, I'm Dean aka the Blue Crusader. In today's video we're going to be building a brand new gaming PC. As you can see here we have all of the components in the box, and over there we have the gaming case, which is the CIT Storm ATX mid tower. Over here, you can just have a look at these components. We have a hard drive which is 1TB, an internal hard drive. I am reusing these components from my old computer though, because I can't really sell them or sell them for parts, so it makes the build even cheaper. As you can see here we have a DVD rewriter, which is the Speedmaster Speed Plus. What we're going to do is we're going to get a blade and we're going to open up the components and start from the motherboard. So obviously we'll get the RAM sorted and the CPU first. So we're going to have to cut into this box. Alright, so we're just going to open this up here from the sides. Try and do it carefully obviously, because we don't want to wreck the components. We're just going to cut this very precise down the middle and we're into the box. So I'm just going to take all this out and we'll show you all the components. We have a hard drive back here with the disk tray, and all of the new parts are inside. So as you can see we do have the Core i5-8600K, which is the processor we'll be using for this build. And of course this is quite good. It was quite cheap as well. I think it was around £300, so still quite a budget product. Everything in this build is obviously part of a budget build. Here we have the CPU cooler, which is a 4-pin Hyper-TX3 Evo, and that's what we'll be putting to cool the processor on the motherboard. Inside we also have two 120mm LED fans, which are in blue, because the case we have does have one of these at the front, but there's also space at the back and the side, so that's the reason why we bought two additional ones. Inside we do have a HyperX DDR4 stick of RAM as well, and we'll be using this in the case. Unfortunately we only have one stick currently, but I do plan to upgrade this in the future with another one to boost up to 16, so this will just be in one slot of course. Here is obviously something really basic. It might already come pre-applied on the CPU cooler, but we do have some thermal paste just in case we need it of course, which is just to put on top of the CPU on the motherboard. Over here is another important component we have, which is a wireless PCIe adapter. We're obviously going to use this to connect to the internet when I'm out of range, in case I need to move my computer or PC to any location. As we move on to the build, I'm going to show you the motherboard last, because it's the most important. But next, we'll have a look at the power supply. We do have a 500 watt power supply by EVGA, and I think 500 watts should definitely cover this build, because recommended, it said it was 340 watts, so hopefully this should power our build really nicely. So the last or second to last component is obviously the beast, the GTX 1060. So this is probably one of the best budget cards we've got, because as you know a lot of the GPUs are going up in price recently because of bit miners and all this other controversy, but this was actually quite cheap. It was okay, it was around £300, and it was still able to be included in this budget build. So as you can see we do have the 3-year warranty. It's by PNY, which is a manufacturer. We also have the motherboard, which is the main part of the product, and this is the Z370A Pro, and this will be where everything's just going to hub into. So we can just look on the back as well, and you can see some of the actual features on here. It says VGA cards protected, optimized for multiple GPU, enjoy crystal sound, DDR4 boost. We're going to put this on the table, zoom into all the components and move this box so we can get built. Right, so here we have the motherboard, which we need to actually open up first, the Z370A. So I'm just going to open from the box at the bottom. I'm just going to open everything up. Here we have the anti-static wrapper, so we've got to be careful when taking this out of the box, of course. So we're going to take it out and we're going to build this on top of the box. We're just going to put that there for now. Still in its wrapper, of course, should be protected. And inside we do have certain other important things which we need to take out. Inside we have the back I/O shield, which is where all the components will align to, so we're just going to put that there because we need to open that first to put in the case later. And inside we also do have certain cables that need connecting to the motherboard as well. Here we do have the motherboard drivers. This needs to be installed as soon as we get Windows 10 installed at the end of the video, so that needs to be on hand, but it can just stay in the box for now. But what is important is this motherboard guide. We might need to refer to that when fitting everything into it, so that definitely needs to be on hand as well. And we're going to use the box as the workstation, and we're going to try and get this built on top of it. We're going to try and take this out of the anti-static packaging. The seal should be underneath somewhere, so we're just going to try and take the press up without breaking it and break the seal. There we go. And what we want to do is we want to take out the motherboard carefully and put the anti-static wrapper on top of the box and put it on top of here where we're going to actually build on top. And this is really important because we don't want it to break, and here we have the motherboard. So we do have the slots for RAM here, which we'll be using for our 8GB stick, and certain other ports which will be important later. So what we're going to do first is we're going to put the RAM in, because that's the most simple. This is the 8GB stick of RAM. This is really important to fit first, just because it's so simple. We just need to get out of the way. So I'm just going to get this open, and here we go. Here is the RAM stick. Just one stick, like we said before, should slot into the slot very nicely. So what we need to do is we need to stick in the first stick of RAM. If we only have one stick, or if we have a combination of two, you should be able to see somewhere on this motherboard. Not sure if you can focus there, but it does say where to put the stick first, which is in slot 2 and slot 4. So what we need to do is just put these latches to the side here, so we can just fit our RAM inside. I'm going to pop it in the second port. It does need to align up with these holes though, so hopefully we should have it the right way around. And if we do, we should be able to just slot it in there. As you can see, it does match up without breaking anything. Just need to give it a bit of a press, and the side panels should click it into place, of course. We have our RAM fitted, so we can move on to the CPU. Moving on to the CPU part of the motherboard here, we do have the little bracket here. So what we need to do is press down this little ribbon here, this little metal pin, and open it up, and we'll open the CPU slot. Inside here we can put our CPU in. So what we need to do now is open up the Core i5 by the seal, very carefully, obviously with the trusty blade, and we have broken the seal, so we're just going to push this up. Inside should be our CPU, which you can see through this small little window there. The CPU is the thing you have to be the most careful with though, however, because if you actually handle it barbarically, you might actually break it. So I will note how we need to actually hold it in a second. Inside is the CPU. So we're just going to open this up by opening the cardboard windows to it, and we can just pull up these sides and pull it out. When we actually open it, however, though, we do need to hold it by the sides, because it's recommended not to touch the pins on the bottom and not to touch the top. The top is where we're going to apply the thermal paste. So we're just going to open it up from the side here. We're going to hold the plastic while we open it, and there should be two little slots here where we can put our fingers, so we can definitely hold the sides of it. So I'm just going to pull out here, and only hold the sides, of course, because we don't want to damage it in any way. And somewhere on the actual processor should be a little gold arrow in the corner, and there should be a little arrow on the motherboard somewhere, which I believe is here, this little circle, and that should align up to the circle so the CPU actually fits. So we're just going to hold it carefully, and definitely just look to see if there's any arrows anywhere. I believe it's just the white circle, so we're just going to line it up, and hopefully we should be able to place it down fine, and it should pop in just like that seamlessly. Right, so now what we need to do is break off this little plastic seal on top of the CPU, and we can place the tray down, of course, like before, without breaking anything. And then what we do is we push this down. Might seem like you're using some force here, but it's definitely not a problem, and we're just going to lock that into place here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to put some thermal paste on top of it, and we're going to open up the CPU cooler first though, because some of them do actually have thermal paste applied to the bottom. So if that's the case, we won't need the additional thermal paste. If not, then we do have it on hand. So we're just going to break this seal here. There we go, and we broke into the box. So we're just going to open it up from the top here without ripping it. Not sure what's in this box. Seems like some of the bolts or some of the thumb screws to maybe put it in, so we're just going to keep that on hand in the corner. So here is the CPU cooler, and this is what needs to be fit inside. As you can see here, this should be where we actually stick on the paste. So as we take it out of the box, on this side where there's a seal, this is where the paste will be on top of the actual CPU. So we're just going to take this out. I don't think we have to be particularly careful with this component. I've not read that we have to be super careful with that, so we're just going to get that out there on hand. And now what we need to check is, because there was a seal here, we need to check if there's actually thermal paste on it, which there actually might not be. So we're just going to take this off. Doesn't seem to be any thermal paste on there, so I believe we will have to apply some, and we need to open the thermal paste, of course, because that's the next step. So this should be pretty simple to open, of course. You can buy this very cheap for like £2 on a lot of websites. It's definitely not an expensive item, and this is obviously necessary to apply to the CPU. It'll be like a syringe when you buy it, and it just looks like this, very small. So we're just going to unscrew this red little lid on it, and we can get ready to apply it. So you only need to apply a little blob on top of the CPU in the middle, so just about that much. I'll probably put too much on, but it should be fine. And then when you put the cooler on top, it should spread out when it turns on. And here we go with the CPU cooler. Right, so we've actually assembled the legs on the CPU cooler. A lot of different coolers will be different, some of them might come pre-assembled. We have to put these pegs in and then diagonally click them both in. So we're just going to align them up to the slots here. We've already pre-applied the thermal paste onto the CPU, but we just need to be super careful. I'm going to try and line up the legs without ruining everything. This is the wire we'll need to plug it into the motherboard, which is super important. So before we plug it in, we need to untangle this cable. There we go. And we can just unwind it like that, and obviously this will plug into one of the slots on the motherboard. So now what we can do is do what we were going to do before and align it up again. Next, what we need to do is we need to get the CTI Storm ATX mid tower case. So we're just going to open this up with a knife. Obviously we've done everything required in the pre-step, so we basically just need to get the tower set up. And inside we have our gaming case, which is obviously the bread and butter of the whole project. So now what we need to do is we need to take out this carefully, so we don't want to break it. Just going to get the help of my friend to actually unbox this. So he's going to hold the box and we can pull it out there. Never be too scared to ask for help with these things because you don't want to get anything broken. Thanks, we'll see you later in the test. And this case is actually really light, so I'm hoping it does have all the brackets and stuff inside like the pictures, like what we needed. Here is our case. It was a cheap case, it was a cheap product, I think it was around 30 something pounds, but it does have all the nice front panels and everything. So we're just going to take the seals off, and everything looks really clean. So obviously on the top, if you like, we do have the USB 3 and USB 2 ports, and over here we do have the audio ports. We need to get this onto our workstation so we can actually get the motherboard plugged in. So luckily for us, on the back it does have these thumb screws, so we can actually unscrew them with our hands to get the case off, which is super useful. In a lot of cases you have to mess around with screwdrivers. There is also a plastic seal on the side of the case, which we can just pull off with ease. This is the side window. We can't see too much into the case, but we do have a little side view into that, which is always nice to look at your components. We're just going to use these thumb screws to actually get one side of the case open. So we just need to put our thumb screws down there, just so we don't lose them, and we'll open this side. What it seems to look like inside is it does seem to have some sort of packaging inside as well, which is actually covering some of the components, obviously. So we're just going to try and carefully open this without breaking it. And we've opened the side window, obviously carefully. Don't want to bust any of the things that connect. Right, so now as you can see we do have a lot of the wires which are hooked up inside. Obviously the pins here, space for the motherboard, and the back where we're going to put the graphics card and PCI wireless adapter. So what we want to do first is we want to put this flat on the case, because we're going to be fitting our motherboard inside, and we can just leave these wires, or I guess we can just unknot them so they're out of the way. And these wires are very crucial, we're going to need them later. It does also have some screws here which are really important, so I'm just going to put them to the side so we don't lose them. So now the important thing is just getting the motherboard in general. So of course this supports the ATX motherboard, which is the motherboard type we've got, and we need to just fit it in the slots. So we have our I/O shield here for the motherboard. This is where the components will slot into all these holes. We just want to unwrap this basically, and once you've taken it out, this is the first step of actually installing it in the case. What you want to do is you want to face it upwards this way. Make sure all the text can be readable and is legible. Make sure it's not facing downwards, because that's not how you're supposed to fit it. And there should be a slot down here in the case somewhere where we can actually just click this in. We should be able to line this up and just click it into the case like that, and it should make a clicking sound. Right, so now we have the I/O shield in, we need to install the motherboard. And the motherboard basically is self-explanatory, so when we install it, this way here should line up to the I/O shield, so we have all the components in. So there should be some holes inside the motherboard as well, which should line up to these screws inside. So we're just going to get straight into it and try and install this in the case. So we have 3 additional gold pins here, which we actually need to fit inside the case in these 3 slots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the case and I'm going to screw them in, and our motherboard should be able to fit. The motherboard should be able to fit in fine. So we're just going to lift this really carefully, obviously facing the I/O board components on the left, so we'll fit into the bracket, and we're just going to put this in the case. The case is quite small, so we just have to be careful, and we're going to have to line up the holes to the sides of the case. Now we've screwed in our motherboard, so everything seems to be placed down fine. We've got our graphics card left. We have all the wires to place into everything. We didn't put the fan in for a start, did we? So we need to put that in the 4-pin connector. We're installing the hard drive right now, so we need 2 screws in the side of the case, and later on we'll obviously plug in the SATA cables and power cables to it. So we're going to install the 1060 next. We're going to open up the 1060 graphics card very carefully. This is the 1060 6GB model, and slide this bad boy out. Need to be careful not to drop it, of course. And it does have a manual in here, probably telling us how to hook it up. It should be quite self-explanatory. And there is the card with 2 fans, so it's a double fan card. Just going to put this on the side and carefully take it out of this packaging. Right, so we need to break one of these back panels first.
Just happened. He makes me sick.
Well, that takes care of that, eh, Patrick?
Done and done. What just happened?
Next up is the PCI wireless network card, which we need to actually plug in the case from Asus. So what we need to do is we just need to open the case as usual, and this needs to go below the graphics card and on the slots. This is the last one we actually need to fit into the case, and we'll take out the network card. It's really important that we actually get this in the case now so we don't have to do any more maintenance. There is the wireless antenna, which we're actually going to stick out the back of the case. As you can see on the box, we do need to actually plug in 2 antennas. There is 2 adapter slots here, and in the case there is also 2 there, so we're going to use this slot second to bottom to keep some airflow going. So now what we need to do is we need to open up this again, and the case is kind of flimsy. Obviously you'll see this with a lot of cheap cases. You have to sort of pry out these. Some of them you can actually unscrew and re-screw back in, but you'll see on these cheaper cases that you have to actually permanently take them out. I'm going to face it outwards so we can screw the antennas in once we've fitted it, and we're going to place it down here into the motherboard. And this should be easier than the graphics card to fit in. We just give it a bit of a push and slot it into here. Right, there we go, and now we just click it in, and this will need screwing into the actual case. Doesn't look like there's a screw bracket here though, so I think once we screw in this top bracket everything should click. So what we're going to do is we're going to get one of these big screws, and this is because it's going to be top heavy and there's no actual attachment joint to this, so it needs to be top heavy to actually screw it in. And there we go, we have it all screwed in. So we have our network card done. Right, so we've now finished the machine. We've been building it for about 2.5 hours. Everything's done. We haven't yet tested it, but the whole tower is actually complete. We've done the PSU, we've done everything after the CPU cooler, which is what we recorded. We did skip a few steps because certain motherboards have certain connectors that are different, and you want to refer to your manual. Obviously certain steps will be different depending on your product, so you'll want to refer to your actual instructions. But as we can see over here, this is the PC. And we have our side window here. You can see the cases. We have tried to do a bit of case management, but obviously this is the first PC build I've done gaming wise, so the cable management isn't really that good. We have the power supply down here at the back. If we just go around to the back, we do have the I/O cover of the case here, which has all the adapters for the ports on the back. We have audio, USB 2, USB 3, everything we need. Down here with these antennas is the PCIe wireless internet adapter card, and at the bottom here on the power supply is where our power cable will go into to turn on the machine. So at the side here, obviously like before, we do have our window. Hopefully this will light up blue to a certain degree. The back will light up blue because there is actually a case fan at the back, but unfortunately we couldn't really fit the third fan in the side, but we do have 2 internal fans, so everything should be fine. Heat wise, down at the front, if we just look at the top here, we do have the certain ports. We do have USB 2 and 3 audio ports on the top, and then we have a nifty little side thing that opens up, a little side panel. And here is our DVD-RW Speed Master Super Write Master DVD disc tray. We don't have anything here at the minute, but the hard drive is internal down at the bottom inside the case. So on the top we have various cables, the power cable, and we have the motherboard and wireless network adapter CDs for drivers. We're going to get this booted up. We're going to try a few different games, install H1Z1 and GTA 5. I'll give you a little benchmark on some little clips and see how the FPS is, and we'll get this thing rolling. And the PSU is located in the bottom, so we do need to plug this in the back. And this is the moment of truth. Luckily there's no wires in at the minute, so you should be able to get a good view of that. I'm going to untangle this cable, and we're going to plug it straight in the PSU, which goes upside down. Just press that in there. Right, so after having some motherboard issues, which obviously won't be the same for people following this video, because obviously each motherboard is different, each slot's different, so you've got to refer to your user manual. But after fixing some motherboard problems with my brother fixed, we also had some problems with hard drive, which I managed to fix in the BIOS. The other monitor's not hooked up. I'm not sure if we'll be able to hook up both. We're just going into Windows 8 right now. We was going to get Windows 10, but I think we're going to settle with 8 right now. Might install to Windows 10. Everything's looking perfect so far. So what I'm looking to do is set up some games, hopefully record some benchmarks. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait until this gets onto the desktop. I'm going to show you some clips benchmarking certain games and see what FPS we get. So thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and you think the PC is really cool, and I'm going to leave you some clips now of games and FPS.
Ah